Well, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Ballinamore in County Leitrim here, where I'm delighted to be joined on the Lite Bite Lunch today by a regular guest of ours, Brendan Murphy. Brendan, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure, no problem. Anytime.
Before we get into chatting with you, I just want to make quick mention in relation to the Micro Business Awards.
Okay.
Just Apologies, folks. We seem to have a few gremlins in the system today that things don't want to work properly, but we'll get through it one way or the other. It's the joys of live broadcasting. The Micro Business Awards finals are coming up in October. The 15th of October is when they will be on, and there are only a handful of tickets left. I believe, as of this morning, there's only about 18 tickets left to be ordered. The finals are being held on the 15th of October in the Osprey Hotel in Naas, where there's a fabulous night lined up, good food, good friends, and most importantly, good fun. And of course, we will name the winner in all 14 categories of the Micro Business Awards for 2022, as well as naming the People's Choice Award winner and the overall winner. So it is going to be a fun night to be had. And I'd say to anyone, if you would like tickets, just send an email to microbusinessawards@gmail.com and with how many tickets you would like, and we can get it back. For bookings of tables of 8 or more, discounts are available, so just drop us an email and we can go through all that with you. So that's the housekeeping side of things out of the way. So first of all, Brendan, for anyone who's watching who may not have seen you on the show before, perhaps you tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'm an international business consultant, and I live in Ireland, been in Ireland for most of my life, but I lived in Irpin for the last several years. Irpin is just outside of Kyiv, and of course on the February the 24th, the Russians attacked Gostomel, Bucha and Irpin. They occupied the territory. They did a lot of atrocities there, and many world leaders visit 5 minutes walk from where I live in Irpin, and I would have had an intimate connection both to Ukraine and this small beautiful city for many years.
Great, thank you very much. That gives people a general idea about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to come on and talk about the book that you're writing in a couple of minutes as a means of raising funds for Ukraine. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to put up there, there we go. So for anyone that would like to support Brendan's fundraising attempts, the details of the GoFundMe page are scrolling across the bottom of the screen, and we'll leave that up throughout the interview if anyone wants to support Brendan in any way. And I will put it up where it can be easier read as well as we go along. So, firstly and foremostly, as opposed to the filtered news we get through, right? What updates can you give us from Ukraine from a first-hand perspective?
Okay, so first of all, there is a huge shift in this war. It's a very terrible war, as everybody knows, but Russia has been losing for some considerable time. So much so that they stalled last week, and they have huge problems. It's getting increasingly obvious that as they lost attacking Kyiv in the north, they lost Kharkiv, they haven't been successful in breaking out of some of the early gains in Kherson, which is the south of Ukraine, and they've concentrated in the middle, trying to take Lugansk and Donetsk, and they've made progress in Lugansk, but not made much progress in Donetsk. And two things have happened here. First of all, what they are doing is very evil. They are now resorting to cruise missiles and bombs, killing innocent people, including this morning, yesterday, and the day before. But this vicious evilness is where it's most intensive has stalled, and where it has been defeated, it's moving backwards, including in Kherson. So the terribleness of that is that people are dying. The terrible of that is that food that feeds the world is being destroyed. They're actively bombing agricultural holdings, whether that's cattle or arable land, using incendiary devices that burn the crops, and they're really causing chaos. But there's no question that what's happening now with the support of the world, especially through the Ramstein Group, is that increasingly more powerful weaponry is being used by Ukrainians. And in the last 5 days, 30 Russian warehouses and logistical hubs have been destroyed from Friday to today. Uh, and that's important, and it's holding off. What's happening where cities have been very badly damaged and affected is people repairing, and they're trying to rebuild, regather, trying to find materials and insulate their properties and try and repair their properties as best they can. Now, globally, of course, Putin and Russians have sought what we might call an axis of evil, joining with Iran and China and Turkey. And that hasn't gone well. Yesterday, there was a meeting with Putin and the Ayatollah in Iran and Erdogan, and that was very unsuccessful for Putin. China is going very cold to Russia, and all of this dynamic, this geopolitical dynamic, is having an impact as well. Now, obviously, for people who live in Ukraine, it's a very difficult, very painful experience. And Ukrainians in Ireland are having very difficult experiences, not only in terms of mental health, not only in terms of the disruption and the dislocation in their lives, but the uncertainty in not knowing. So, without going on too long, that in a nutshell is what's currently happening.
Right. Well, that's it. Really is particularly tough. Again, for anyone that hasn't seen Brendan on the show before, Brendan actually drove an entire route, an escape route out of Ukraine under very difficult circumstances. But we will come around to that when we talk about the book, about your book, in a few minutes' time.
Sure.
Something as a little bit of a lighter subject, just to break things up a little bit. As you may know, today is National Junk Food Day.
Yes.
Now, why anyone feels a need, what research I've managed to do on it, which there isn't a lot of information out there about it, but it's actually claimed originally it was created by a couple of diet companies who are trying to give people an excuse to have a cheat. So, for you, what type of junk food would you be going for?
Well, for a start, I don't recognize junk food as a title because I like burgers and chips. Fish and chips is always number one, always will be number one. But these people would call a rasher sandwich junk food. I love that kind of thing. Don't eat it over it every day. But for me, my go-to would be fish and chips and a rasher sandwich. Occasionally a burger and chips, something like that. If that's what people want to describe as junk food.
Well, you see, to me, my thoughts are, in terms of junk food, is it is something that is high in fat, high in calories, and very little nutritional value.
Yeah.
Now, things like your fish and chips, your burger and chips, depending how they're prepared, don't have to actually come in under junk food, but it's one of those. It's a fun one to celebrate if you're that way inclined.
Sure, we have a National Fish and Chip Day in Ireland, as you probably know.
Yes.
And that is something that we should celebrate because really Irish people, well, I don't know about the kind of children who are 9, 10 and 11 now, but most Irish people, the go-to food is fish and chips. That's what will always, any problems you have in life, alcohol and fish and chips, it's done deal. No problem whatsoever.
Well, the number of takeaways that employ extra staff, in particular for a Friday, because Friday is fish and chips night when everyone gets paid.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So no, 100% agree with you on that. There's no doubt about it. And that brings us nicely on to talk about your Lite Bite Lunch. So I think previously you mentioned the bacon sandwich there. I
Yeah,
think you mentioned the Teddy's ice cream on another occasion when you were on
yeah, a 99, yeah.
99. So what's the most recent favourite, or are we still sticking with the basics?
Listen, basics all day long. Basics all day long, right?
Yeah,
Nothing fancy, nothing complex. I saw that they're doing a 9-inch 99 in some shop. I don't know where, but for me that's too much. But yeah, no, the basics work for me.
yeah,
Perfect.
that's right. That's the takeaway there, just outside Dunshaughlin and Meath,
Ah, yeah, right.
is the one doing that. The
Yeah,
big boy.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, that might be interesting, but again, I think I'm fortunate that a little bit of ice cream goes a long way with me. Have one, and
Yeah.
I'm not bothered then for a couple of months. So
That would be me. You know, a 99 is a summer's day. I wouldn't. You know, it has to be hot and it has to be a busy day for me anyway.
that's it. So now moving on, and the main reason I wanted to bring you back on today, a suggestion was made through the comments previously, when you were on, that you should write a book about your story.
Yes.
And I'm delighted to say that with a little bit of coaxing, you have actually sat down and you've written a book, and a portion of the profits are going to support the war effort in Ukraine. And um, to get the book onto the bookshelves in Ireland, you needed to raise some money, and I know you have a GoFundMe page running, and you're about halfway to your total. So what I will do is I just put up that block there, and people will be able to see clearly how they can donate to the GoFundMe page. And again, I had a conversation with Brendan about this during the week. Even if you're not in a position to make a donation, please tell more people about it. Share the link with them, because the more people that know, the easier. So, Brendan, I want to get into talking to you about the book.
Hmm.
Several people, when they hear it's going to be a book about what has happened in the war in Ukraine, will feel, do I really want to read about murder, about everything like that?
Hmm. It's not about that. So,
Right?
this is very much um, a real account of what happened. Not only nothing. If it comes in three phases. One is Ukraine and my experiences with Ukraine over 20 years, visiting different places, what those places were like at the time I was there, what was interesting, what was challenging, my relationship with Marina, who's my wife, the story of our family, and then the story from the 23rd of February, which was the night before the attack, all the way through to when we arrived in Ireland, and maybe a month afterwards. So it's a story about people, and it's a story about, um, you know, uh, strangers. The fact that we were given safe houses, we were given safe routes, we were given, we were sent messages: move here, turn there, avoid this. The Russians are here, the military are here, there's fighting there. Not only that, but going to small protected communities where we were given a safe house to stay in. And then we would go to another location and in another location. Some of them are Ukrainians, some of them are Irish. But these safe houses were delivered, and all of the support, including getting across on the ferry, including getting the dog and the cat, which has absolutely no documents and no anything, was that was achieved by the kindness of strangers. And Irish people understand that phrase really well. But this is a story about how the kindness of strangers really makes a difference in people's lives.
Right. Fabulous story. Maggie Geraghty has a question for you and a suggestion. Would you consider pre-selling the book?
So I reached out to 6 publishers, global publishers, and 2 of them came back and said they were interested. Uh, Now, what they've asked is that I need to make a financial contribution, which is what this GoFundMe is for, because it's called a hybrid publishing contract. Usually, you would get 5% of the book, and then the book would be taken over by them. The filming rights would be taken over. This one is higher, and I do get some free books for being able to gift to people. It's not many, but I do have that. So it's not self-publishing, but I can say, okay, I'm going to organize with the publisher so many books that I can give to people, and they've agreed a number now. I can talk to them about increasing that number, but this goes to the publisher. The publisher's job is to sell the book. But certainly, I do have a small number of books. Between 25 and 50 currently, that I am gifted, and I can do whatever I want with them.
Right, well, certainly I'll be talking to you at some stage about taking one of those off you when they become available.
Well, you can be sure that there will be a set of books that I will personally sign. And that will go to certain people, and you're one of them.
That's
no
great.
question about that.
I do appreciate that. So, if you will, without giving away too much of the book, take us back to. Let's go back. I'm trying to work out how long I know you, Brendan, and I'm figuring it's somewhere in the region of about 15, 18 years that we first met.
Yeah, I think so.
Right? And you it wasn't long after that, I think, that you were becoming prominent in business in Ukraine.
Yeah, so my connection to Ukraine goes back to 1997, when an Irish company was trying to bring Ukrainians into Ireland, because Microsoft and large software companies wanted to form a competency in Ireland, and Irish people didn't have that competency at that time. Certainly not enough Irish people. So they were trying to bring in Ukrainians into Ireland to be the bedrock. And we've seen what's happened 20 some years later. But the company that was doing it, an Irish company, was struggling. And as a business advisor and business consultant, I went in from that point of view. And then I worked with the embassy on business and trade between Ireland and Ukraine for a period of years. I stopped because of the problems with Yanukovych, and then because of the problems in 2014, and then started again in 2015. So there was a period where I didn't do anything because it was very bad. And since 2015, I've increasingly been involved, and I would have connections to very many highly capable businesses and capable business people, policy people, governmental people, and people in the EBRD and the World Bank, simply because I will have engaged with them, networked with them, discussed, and studied Ukraine and Ukraine economy. And I've also helped businesses, even as recently as the last couple of years during the pandemic, who wanted to invest in Ukraine.
Yeah, so like you've a good knowledge of it, and obviously you fell in love there, etc. So
yes. I mean that wasn't the plan. We were friends for 12 years before we decided it would be romantic. Yeah. So it wasn't something that was in a day or a week.
Oh yeah, no, well, absolutely. I mean, quite often the strongest relationships take time to build. That is the right.
Yeah.
And when you look now, when you hear about things like the tented village at Gormanstown for refugees, right? Is Ireland taking a step backwards, do you feel?
Okay, so when I came back to Ireland, my house has been empty for 2 years, and then I had 8 Ukrainians in it at one point at the beginning, which was a little bit crazy. And then when they established, they moved off, and now there's just 3 of us, and there are 2 now in Gormanston who are waiting to come here. And so I'm waiting for them to arrive, and they can't leave because they're getting their documentation from the Irish government. Now, before that, they used City West, and before that, they used Dublin Airport, as you probably know. The problem with City West is nothing to do with Ukrainians. It's to do with a very high increase in economic refugees coming to Ireland from different parts of the world. And as I understand it, the government is trying to separate Ukrainians from non-Ukrainians, because the reason why Ukrainians are here is because of the war, right?
Yes.
They're not here for any other reason. And they have a certain and very different schedule of rights and entitlements to other refugees. They're not the same because it's a war situation. Now, I think there's no question that the Red Cross has a lot of questions to answer. I think this challenge was too big for them. Currently, it was a challenge. It would be difficult to ramp up in any case. Anyone doing it, it was a very high challenge. But the reality is that the census says there's 166,000 vacant properties that are inhabitable, and they're not. And that's a government policy thing. So all of these are connected to a series of failures that are weaknesses, if I could describe it as that. And the moment there's a pressure point applied to it, things fall apart. So is Ireland doing a lot? Yes. I've travelled to Donegal, and I've travelled to the cliffs of Moher and Galway. And there's Ukrainian flags everywhere. In every village, every town, people are accommodating people. The systematic placing of people has been not as effective as it could be, but the people have taken responsibility and gone in another direction. They say, right, well, if we can't do it through the Red Cross, we'll do it a different way. And the Facebook page Ukrainians in Ireland has been very useful in that. And, Ukrainians in Dundalk, Ukrainians in Galway, they've set, Irish people have set these up and said, right, okay, we'll organize it ourselves because the government is struggling, we'll give it a hand. And people are taking people in. And I know even in the last few days, people who are in one part of Ireland, but the family is in another part, people have said, well, come over and stay for the night, visit your family, and then go home again. No charge, just because it's like a family visit. What I will say, though, is that 2 days ago, I came across somebody asking for the passport and ID. And I want to make it clear to everybody, there is no entitlement to seek, to look at, or possess a passport or ID of anyone. If you book on Airbnb, you never give your identification to anyone. And it's something that, some of it is sinister, I've no doubt, and some of it is just innocent. But there are many, many ordinary people willing to give accommodation. And personally, lying in a tent on a camp bed in a cold, windy Gormanston is not ideal for someone who spent maybe 15 days going from war, traveling, the uncertainty, the stress, the family left at home, the parents who refused to leave, the extended family who couldn't leave, the family and friends that couldn't leave. There's a lot of stress and sensitivity and a lot of emotional support that's needed that isn't being provided. And that piece is probably going to be more important from now going forward. And spending several days in a processing facility is not really conducive to healthy people, healthy state of mind, right? And I know why they're doing it. They want to get it done and dusted. But before, right at the beginning, they were doing it piecemeal. Or you can get your public services card, or you can get your medical card. You can do bits and bits and bits and bytes. Now they're trying to do everything. And there's 150 people in Gormanston, and they're trying to do that. And the volunteers are tired, as far as I understand. And I know that because I have people in there waiting. But also they're trying to do too much in one place, and it's putting stress on people. So we need to look at that model and re-examine it. The government need to do and say, hang on, we're trying to do too much with vulnerable people. And arguably, the Irish people are doing better than anyone else on the planet. Ukrainians are highly appreciative and love the Irish people. But we ourselves need to understand that they are delicate, right? They're vulnerable people. Even if they don't look it, even if they're big, robust, and vibrant, they're still vulnerable. And we need to be mindful of that. But absolutely, the Irish are best in the world as usual. But we need to learn some things and we need to kind of stand back from some of our thinking and just say, hang on a minute, that might work for the system, but it's brutal on the individual. So maybe we need to soften it.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because during last week when they were using Dublin Airport for a couple of days with refugees arriving in, and RTE actually had a reporter there speaking to a number of people. Now, let's go through the facilities they had. If they were lucky, they had a camp bed
Yeah.
and one single sheet.
Mm-hmm.
Many were sleeping on the floor.
Yeah.
They had no cooking facilities.
Yeah.
They had toilet facilities, but no shower facilities.
Yeah.
Everyone that RTA interviewed there, who was Ukrainian, were saying, well, the facilities here are better than what we're coming from. So they were
Yeah.
appreciative of it.
Yes.
There was only 2 people who actually were complaining about the lack of facilities, etc. And exactly as you said, they were economic refugees.
Yeah. 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 And I can tell you from people who are traveling now, in Paris, they've sought to separate the Ukrainians from other economic refugees, and the economic refugees attacked the facility, ran through it, disturbed a lot of people, scared a lot of people, and tried to steal a lot of things out of anger that the Ukrainians were seen to be privileged. What's the privilege? They were in a cold, big, open thing, exactly like Dublin Airport, one of these field camp beds. I don't know if anyone has slept in a tent or anything like that, but it's just one of those metal frame things. And bear in mind that they've got children, babies, children under 10, teenagers, and they've been doing this for 15, 20 days, right? Every single day under pressure. 10 or 15 days under the threat of war, with missiles, with bombs, with block posts, with a lot of fear. And then with all of this uncertainty of who am I, what am I can't speak the language, I don't understand anything. It's very alien to me. So where you're saying now is yeah, the people who are complaining are not the Ukrainians, but we do need to be a little bit more human in some of our interactions with. And I'm not saying the ordinary Irish person. I'm talking about the organisation itself. We should be better at clearing accommodation for people, quicker, I mean. We need to be less rules kind of oriented. We can pick up bits and pieces. We just need to know they're safe and sound. We need to make sure that everybody is not being put at risk. And we need to know that whatever support facilities they can get, we can get them within reasonable time. You don't need a public services card within 24 hours or 48 hours of being here. You need your PPS and you need some social welfare form. That's all you need. And your TPO, which is this yellow piece of paper that says you're entitled to live and work in Ireland and be part of the European community, which is what they are. And I just think it's a sensitivity issue, and we're learning in real time. So of course mistakes are being made. I'm not criticizing, I'm just observing.
No, absolutely. Well, unfortunately, Brendan, time has caught up on us and we have to leave it there for today. And once again, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and talk to us. I know you're juggling 101 different things at the moment.
Yeah.
And again, anything at all that we here at the Lite Bite Lunch can do to support you, you know, we're just at the end of the phone. Pick up the phone, give us a call, and we'll certainly do anything we can to support you.
Yeah.
I will be back with you for another episode of the Lite Bite Lunch in 2 weeks' time, when we will be coming to you from the Kingdom of Kerry. We'll be down in Killarney with a wonderful show, and we'll see you all then. Good afternoon.
Thank you.